StraighTAllDay.com.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is halftime mentality. And I'll get into explaining what this is in a second. Before we do that, first, let me tell everybody, special announcement. This show is sponsored by my daily motivation text. That's a free text message that I send out every single day that is guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. A text message that you'll get straight to your phones, just like you get from people every single day. You want to get that text from me every day that is going to do what I said it's going to do. All you got to do is text me at my number, 305-384-6894. And every day when I send it, you'll be on my list. You'll get it. You can actually, as a bonus, reply to any one of those text messages. You'll be talking directly to me. Sometimes I might ask you a question. I may ask you about your challenges, and I may be talking specifically to you. Yes, I will reply specifically to you, and you can respond to those text messages and talk directly to me. That is not outsourced. A lot of people think that that's outsourced, or some people say to me, Dre, your team is doing a great job with these texts. No, my team is, when it comes to those texts, is me. I am doing that. So text me at that number. It is listed down below in the show notes. You get my daily motivation. Now, this topic, the halftime mentality. I'm not talking about halftime like in the middle of a football or basketball game. It's not the kind of halftime I'm talking about. I'm talking two words, half-time, halftime mentality. I got this idea coming to me when I was listening to this woman named Rachel Miller. She was talking about, I was listening to her give a presentation on business, and she was talking about how she was talking about a specific business subject, but she was giving her backstory, talking about how she built her business. And she built her business while raising triplets. Yes, triplets. 3 kids who were all like they were all the same age. So they were all like maybe 1 or 2 years old while she was building her business, because this was over a period of time. And they were 2 years old. I actually have it in my notes here. 2-year-old triplets. Now, I have never raised a 2-year-old, but from what I hear, just one 2-year-old can be a significant amount of work and attention and energy requirement. She had 3 of them at the same time that she was building her business. So because of this, and this is kind of the frame for what she went on to talk about, which is not the subject here today, because she had 3 triplets, or it's because she had 2-year-old triplets rather, she did not have unlimited time for work. She had to give a good amount of time to her kids. She only could give a certain amount of time to her work, and she didn't have nearly as much time as many of us have, or that many of us use every single day for our work. So she had to be very economical and very efficient with her work. So today we're going to talk about how we can use this mentality. This is where I got the halftime idea from. She didn't say that. I said that. I got this idea from what she said. So this is, any of you want to know how I'm able to come up with new subjects for the show every single day, is because I get these insights and ideas from random things that people say. Again, her presentation had nothing to do with her triplets or the fact that she didn't have a lot of time in business. It was about something completely different. But I heard this part, and it got me to thinking, like, damn, what if I had triplets that I had to raise by myself? And I mean, she had a husband, but the husband was at work. So she was dealing with the kids all day, and she was trying to build a business while dealing with the kids. How could you do that if you don't have as much time? So let's talk about that. That's the subject here today. Half-time mentality. Number 1, this is all about what you would do and how you would do it if your time was severely limited compared to how much time you have and how much time you are using right now. In other words, let's just say that we take how much time you spend working every single day now. Entrepreneurs or not, you could be a professional working at a job and you got certain work that you get done every single day. Entrepreneur, you're building your business every day. If you had half the amount of time to work every day that you have now, how could you still get the same amount of stuff done? In other words, where are you being inefficient that if you needed to, you could step up your efficiency? This is a really good question, because this is basically the 80-20 rule. It's just another way of saying it. And that's what this is. If you needed to get more done in less time, how would you do it? And the fact that you can come up with answers to this is proof that right now you are inefficient. Because if you're doing everything as efficiently as possible right now, you couldn't answer this question. You would say, well, Dre, I couldn't. I'm doing everything perfectly efficiently right now. Everything's hitting on all cylinders. I know that none of you could say that. And if you did, you'd be lying. And we all know it. Which means all of us could be a lot more efficient than we are right now. This is a good thing. How would you do it if your time was severely limited? This is really about you thinking about how you're using your time, conversely, how you're wasting your time, and where your inefficiencies lie, and then getting urgent about doing something about them. See, it's one thing to just identify them and point them out and let's talk about them, fine. But now what are you going to do about it? That's the real question. We are all of us, we are woefully inefficient with our time, and we do a lot of wasteful, useless activity every single day. We use up a lot of our time aimlessly as if we have a whole bunch of it to spare. But if we found ourselves in a situation like what Rachel was in, with 3 young kids to raise and no extra time, we would all become much more efficient very quickly. Why? Because we had no choice. Is this true or is this not true? We could all use our time a lot better than what we are doing, but we waste it simply because we can. This is Parkinson's law. Any task will expand or contract based on how much time is available for it. This is about how we can put ourselves in that frame of mind even when we do have a choice, as if we don't have a choice. I talked about this a few episodes ago when we talked about putting the bottom-up pressure on yourself instead of the top-down pressure. Instead of waiting until the last minute, and when I was talking about procrastination, instead of waiting until the last minute to get things done and the pressure is on you, how about you just start putting the pressure on yourself earlier so that you get things done sooner than everybody else gets things done. We talked about this in the episode on I work better under pressure, which is absolutely not true, about a week ago. How about you just put that pressure on yourself to get things done more efficiently now, as if time was not on your side? This is a choice, folks, but it's a mentality. It is not something that just randomly happens. It's a mindset that you have to put yourself in. This is not something that just randomly happens because you thought about it idly and it sounded exciting. You got to really choose to do this. Moving on. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the half-time mentality. Number 2. Where are you being wasteful in anything? There's a guy named Alex Sharfin. He has a podcast called Momentum. I talked about it in my favorite podcast episode show, at least the last one that I did. And let me tell you what episode that was, so any of you who didn't hear it, because that one was a couple hundred episodes back. Episode 1637, 1638. So that was, what is that, about 400 episodes ago? Yeah, about 400. No, more than 400, 500, 600 episodes ago, almost 2 years ago, when I mentioned Alex in one of those episodes. He has a show called Momentum, and it's all for entrepreneurs, people who are building businesses. Really good stuff. Y'all should all check Alex out, especially entrepreneurs out there. And on his show, one of the things that he talks about, he does talk about it on his show, but he also talks about it in his program, because I've been a member of Alex's coaching program. And he talks about this thing called doing a time study. And in this time study, is a very simple concept. For 2 weeks, all you do is track how you use every single minute of your day for 2 whole weeks, and you write it down. For 2 weeks straight, you write down how you are using every single minute of your day. And the way that Alex suggested doing this, hopefully I'm not giving away too much, is every 15 minutes, you write down what you're doing. Every 15 minutes. So, I mean, it doesn't mean if you're sleeping, you gotta wake up every 15 minutes. But if you're sleeping, you put sleep time in there. You put how much time you spend at the gym. You put how much time you spend, if you're scrolling social media at 3:30, then you put that down. If you're eating lunch at 4:15, put that down. Whatever you're doing, you write it down every 15 minutes to track how you're spending your day. The whole point is for you to get a real picture of exactly how you're spending your time, so that you know where you need to allocate more resources, where you need to maybe replace yourself in your business, where you need to hire somebody, where you need to do more, where you're being inefficient, etc. That's the whole point of the time study via Alex's concept, and he explains it more in his thing. The purpose, excuse me, is to figure out where the inefficiencies are, where you could bring somebody in, where you need to pass things off. But understand there are times that can also be used, this time study can also be used to figure out where your inefficiencies are just with yourself personally. Forget, even if you don't have a team, even if you're not in a position to hire anybody, even if you're working at a job and you don't need to hire anybody, you got to get your own work done because your boss is breathing down your neck. You can check your own inefficiencies and find out where you could actually do better just with yourself. Forget about everybody else. Find out where you are wasting time. In the 18th century, for example, according to Inc. magazine, a 10 to 16 hour workday was normal because factories used to run 24/7 back in the 18th century. It was the Ford Motor Company that created the standard of an 8-hour workday back in 1914. That's where this came from. So all of us who work 8 hours a day, or you're expected to work 8 hours a day, that standard was started by Henry Ford and Ford Motor Company back in 1914. So you have them to thank. When they did this, productivity increased. Now notice what I said. Before Ford came in with the 8-hour workday, the normal workday was 10 to 16 hours. Imagine a 16-hour workday being a standard every single day. Some of you do that already, but that was the normal workday because the factories are always open. Ford established the 8-hour workday, and when they cut hours from 10 to 16 hours a day to 8 hours a day, productivity went up. And the 8-hour workday has been a normal thing ever since. But according to studies, check this out. The average employee today is productive for about 3 hours every single day. Now they're getting paid for 8, but they're productive for 3. And that's all of you. Even those of you who consider yourself to be super hard workers, the average employee, again, you're probably not average, but the average employee is productive for 3 hours every day. Here's one reason why that is because we can all subconsciously count to 8, and that's a lot of time to be doing actual focused work. That's a lot of time to be working 8 hours. Wouldn't it be much easier if you knew you only needed to do 3 hours of work and you can get it all in at one time? You will probably be a lot more focused and you'll get a lot more done if you knew you only had 3 hours and at the same time you knew that you were getting the same amount of productivity done as a person who was consigned to an 8-hour shift. What if you only had a 3-hour shift and you had to get everything done in 3 hours? Could you get it done? Of course you could. And if you're agreeing with me that you could get everything done in 3 hours, then we can both agree. I'm not going to tell your boss. We can both agree that you're bullshitting through more than half of your day because you're getting paid for 8 hours, but you can get everything done in 3. You just said it yourself. Don't lie. You just said it yourself. You get everything done in 3 hours, but you're getting paid for 8. All right. So you are stealing from your company. I'm tongue in cheek, but you get what I'm saying here. All right. We could all get things done in a much less period of time if we had to. The problem is we never force ourselves to do it. We never force urgency on ourselves. So we're all being very inefficient with our time, and time is making up your life. So to go to a bigger picture, we're all being very inefficient with our lives as if we had time to spare, which none of us do. And if you know anybody who passed away before their time, whatever that means to you, before their time, we all do. We all can name people who did. And you are being inefficient with your time as if it couldn't happen to you. So where are your inefficiencies? And then the bigger question is, what are you going to do about them? This is just some food for thought for those of you who may be capable of employing this, which is everybody. You're all capable of employing this. Now, how you can employ it and how you get everybody to understand, that's something for you to figure out, but anybody can employ this. Whether you are or not, it is hard to get 8 full hours of serious work in every single day because that requires a hell of a lot of focus. I know from experience and many conversations, sometimes it's hard to even find 8 hours of work to do, depending on the kind of work that you're doing, depending on where you're working, how the work is allocated to you. Sometimes it's hard to even fill 8 hours with work. Now, again, depending on what you're doing. But we can all agree, no matter how much time you're working every day, how much time you're expected to work, how much time you claim that you're working, we could all be a lot more efficient and get a lot more done in a shorter period of time, most of us. Now, some of you might be all maxed out right now, and there are some people who are completely maxed out. They're using 8 hours and actually working for 8 hours. But the rest of us, which is the majority of us, now we get a lot more done in the time that we have, the time that we're already using and not even using efficiently or productively. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the half-time mentality. If you had half the time, how could you get things done? Number 3, this is really about putting your back to the wall and putting yourself into what Robert Greene calls the death ground mindset. He talks about this in his book, The 33 Strategies of War, which if you have not read is one of my top 5. I would suggest you read that book, 33 Strategies of War. Also, he talks about the death ground mindset in the book, The 50th Law. He actually talks about it when he talks about the book itself. Robert Greene wrote The 50th Law in conjunction with my favorite rapper, 50 Cent, who I talked about in episode number 316, Virtual Mentors Part 3, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. And what Robert talks about is the 50th Law is written, those of you who haven't read the book, 50 Cent basically gave Robert Greene a bunch of stories from his own life, from 50's life. Robert Greene translated them into the writing material, and then he used other examples. Robert Greene's basically a historian. He used all these historical examples from war and life and all these things to write his books. And Robert talks about how when he wrote the 50th Law, his original draft of the 50th Law, how it was going to be, he read it and he just didn't like it. He felt like it was a little bit too, it just wasn't fitting what he was expecting it to be. He didn't like the quality of his own writing. And he basically took the whole manuscript that he was about to turn into the publisher, and he trashed it. He told the publisher, hey, I don't like this manuscript, I'm trashing it. But the publisher said to him, hey, Mr. Greene, the deadline is still the deadline. You still have to have this book done when it's supposed to be done. There was a very short deadline based on the way Robert writes his books. Any of you ever read a Robert Greene book, you can see they are not small books, and they are heavily researched, and there's a lot of stories in these books, and he does a lot of interpretation of them and everything. Robert Greene's a very thorough writer. One of the reasons why he's one of my favorites. And Robert said, with the deadline looming, he had to, basically his back was against the wall, he had to rewrite the entire 50th Law book, which is coincidentally the shortest of his books, but I don't think it's because he was on deadline. I think this is the way it came out. He had to rewrite that entire book on a very, very short deadline. He was able to do it. And the book came out amazing. It's one of my favorite books. And one of the reasons is, and Robert talks about this, is because his back was to the wall. He had no choice but to figure it out. Now, had he had 6 years to finish the book, he probably would have took 6 years. Parkinson's law. But had he had 60 days, he finished it in 60 days. Whatever the time frame. I don't know what the time frame was. I don't think he ever said. But the whole point is you got to put your back to the wall sometimes in life. And sometimes the situation forces it. My point is you need to figure out how you can choose to do this for yourself. And you can enroll help. You don't have to do this all on your own volition. You can enroll help to get you there, but you have to make the decision that this is what you're doing. That's really the key. That's the crux of this whole thing. It's about putting yourself in a frame of mind in which you don't have any out clauses, and you don't have any tomorrows. In other words, you have to get something done. You got to get it done now, and there are no excuses. The more you can put yourself in this frame of mind and stay there, the more often, the more productive you will be, and the more you will get done, and the faster you will get it all done with zero changes in your circumstances, your skills, or your knowledge. This is a very important sentence, so let me say it again. The more often and consistent, the more often you can put yourself in this frame of mind, the more consistently you can stay there, the more productive you will be, and the more you will get done, and the faster you will get it all done with no change in circumstance, skill, or knowledge. Wouldn't it be amazing that your productivity just goes up, just doubles, and nothing else changed? Yes, it's possible. How is it possible? Activating your mind. This is available to every one of us, and you can do it right now if you wanted to. You just haven't made the choice to do it. And you don't have the strategy to do it or the formula to do it, but it's possible. I can help you with all this. I'll tell you how in a minute. This is simply a change in focus and urgency. These are really the two things that most people need to take themselves to their next level. What most people need is not more information. Notice when I talk to you about my mastermind, I don't say I'm gonna give you more information. I will give you information, but that's not really what you need. What you need is get clear on your focus, which is probably different than what you're focusing on right now, and you need urgency, so that you have a fire lit under your behind, so you actually get things done. So let's recap today's class, and I'll tell you how I can help you do this in a moment. The topic is the half-time mentality. Shout out to Rachel Miller. I borrowed her story of her raising 2-year-old triplets and building her business, and I frameworked out this whole concept of the halftime mentality, which I made up. I did not get that from Rachel, by the way, but shout out to Rachel for seeding the idea. Point number 1, this is about what you would do and how you would do it if your time was severely limited compared to how much time you have now. This is about thinking about how you're using your time, how you're wasting it, where you're being inefficient. This is about how you can put yourself in that frame of mind that you have to get things done and you don't have as much time as you used to, as if you didn't have a choice. Number 2, where are you being wasteful? All right, I talked about Alex Sharfin in the 2-week time study, where you basically track every single minute of your day to find out what you're actually doing with your time as opposed to what you think you're doing with your time, which is usually two completely different things. Can we all agree? It used to be a 10 to 16 hour workday was the norm. In 1914 became an 8-hour workday. It's been like that ever since. Studies show that the average employee is productive for about 3 of 8 hours every single day, not the whole 8. The reason is that's a lot of time to be doing actual focused work. So what if you only had 3 hours a day? Could you get everything done? Of course you could, because that's all you're doing anyway. You're only getting things done for 3 hours. You're just wasting the other 5 every single day. And you waste 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's 25 hours. Do that for a month. That's 100 hours a week, 100 hours a month you're wasting doing absolutely nothing productive. And think about, multiply that out by months, by years. That's how much of your life you're wasting every single day. Wouldn't you want to take that time back with more urgency? And number 3, this is really about putting your back to the wall and putting yourself into what Robert Greene calls death ground. He talked about how he put himself there when he was writing one of his books. So by putting yourself in a frame of mind in which you don't have any out clauses, no tomorrows, you have to get something done. You have to get it done now with no excuses. The more consistently you can put yourself in this frame of mind and stay there, the more productive you will be, and the more you get done, and the faster you get it done, with no change in circumstance, skill, or knowledge. Does that sound like a good proposition to you? You want to learn how to do that? Join me in my Bulletproof Mastermind or work with me one-on-one in my 3rd-day mastermind. Both options are available to you at workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can get involved with working with me. That is the only place where you can work with me directly, where we're going to first of all get your mind in the right place. Notice most of what we're talking about here today, it's called halftime mentality. This is your mindset, the way that you are thinking. We get your mind in the right place first. We clear the ground, then we get to working on building a strategy on top of that. The reverse roadmap from where you want to get to where you are right now. How do we figure that out strategically? Then the accountability for your process and for yourself and the execution of actually getting the thing done. That is all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. And if you didn't hear me at the beginning, text me to get my daily motivation every day free of charge to your phone. My number is 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.